Welcome to the future, where the glass is half full and you'll need new glasses, where you'll be jumping from conclusions.
The past is annulled, and a new future is born.
Never before in history has so much meant so little to so many. AD on the radio.
You know, people are all sorts of bent out of shape about Kanye West saying that slavery was a choice. And, well, look, this is what's going on. Kanye West's comments about slavery being a choice earned him a lot of attention. They could wind up costing him a lot of money as well. There's an online petition asking Adidas to drop his sneaker line. It says, quote, Kanye West has the right to free speech. He has the right to spout lies and misinformation and misplaced opinions, but we as consumers have the right to fight back against this type of dangerous propaganda. In an English TV interview, will.i.am, the Black Eyed Peas guy, said he was heartbroken by Kanye's comments. He said, quote, that statement was one of the most ignorant statements that anybody who came from the hood can say about their ancestors. And he said, I hope he's not saying that to raise awareness, to sell a record and some shoes. Hip-hop legend Dr. Phil thinks that Kanye's words have empowered hate groups. He was very quick to get in on the action. And in case you missed it, on TMZ Live yesterday, Kanye West talked about slavery being a choice. After a TMZ staffer called him out over it, he tweeted, quote, for us to have stayed in that position, even though the numbers were on our side, means that we were mentally enslaved. So it was an incredibly poorly thought out thing. But in a way, what he was saying was no different than Bob Marley saying, emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds. He said, when you hear about slavery for 400 years, that sounds like a choice. Like you were there for 400 years and it's all y'all. It's like we were mentally imprisoned. Those were his words. Now, anytime you say something like slavery was a choice, well, incredibly poorly thought out. And of course, the world is going to respond in an unbelievably angry way. And we talked about this for quite a long time on the show yesterday, but it's tremendously sad that some of the things he said that I think were very valuable were completely obscured by the fact that he led with this notion that slavery was a choice. Got a very insightful letter from a guy that listens in Florida on Real Radio 104.1, guy called Ken, who said, I think Kanye West's point was, and this is interesting, nobody bothered to do the math. I was like, oh, well done, Ken. He said, Kanye West's point was this: slavery ended over 140 years ago. It did not exist for 400 years. So for the last 100 years, people have been enslaved by their mind. Enjoy the show. So
he hit the nail on the head, like seriously.
He did. Yeah, way to go, Ken. It's so funny because nobody else brought up the fact that America, only celebrated his bicentennial a little while ago. And anyways, it's an interesting point. And like I said yesterday on the show, I will continue to say today, it is disappointing that the world has decided to go after him for misspeaking as opposed to picking up on some of the truly insightful things that he said about conditioning and mental slavery. It's like we were saying yesterday. When I was living in New York City right after 9/11, nobody was scared to fly. Everybody got on a plane when we were leaving from JFK or LaGuardia or wherever it was, knowing that if anybody tried anything, every last person on the plane would take that person out without even thinking, without even hesitating. Terror is controlling people mentally. If there's one guy with a gun, people go, a gun, that's scary. But ultimately, if there's 500 of you, you can deal with one guy with a gun. Someone's going to get hurt, but ultimately the odds are in your favor. And Kanye West was sort of pointing out that, hey, in a situation as horrible as slavery, the slaves vastly outnumbered the people that enslaved them. Had it not been for their mental conditioning, they would have been able to take their power back. It's like the idea of South Africa. Over and over again, it's been pointed out that black people were kept in subjugation in South Africa through apartheid for years and years. Yet they vastly outnumbered white people in South Africa. Why? Mental conditioning. It's an unbelievably powerful and destructive thing. I was told once when I was a kid that we are conditioned to believe things, and it's so powerful, it can hold us back in ways we couldn't imagine. And the example I was given was when an elephant is born into a life where it's going to be at the zoo, it's shackled to a stake in the ground as a baby elephant, and it can't break free from the stake. About 6 months into its life, the elephant could easily rip that stake out of the ground and go and do wherever the hell he wanted to go and do whatever the hell he wanted to do. But because that elephant has been mentally conditioned, it can't break that teeny tiny little shackle. It's stuck forever and ever because of its conditioning. And Kanye West had a very important message about our conditioning and how it holds us back, and that's obscured by his incredibly poor choice of words.
Real radio.
104.1. Where the left and right come together for fundamental truths. AD on the radio, on Twitter at ADSXE.
So the entire world has been weighing in on Kanye West. He did not choose his words carefully when he said that slavery was a choice. Now, look, in no way, shape, or form am I defending what he said. I think he had a point, and he just didn't think it through. He didn't think it through. He shoots from the hip. He motor mouths. He had something he wanted to say. He thought it would come out one way, and it came out a completely different way. And the way it came out was a way that hurt people tremendously. The implication that slavery was in any way, shape, or form a choice, it's a horrific thing to hear. With or without context of what he went on to say and the point he was trying to make, it's a horrific and hurtful thing to hear. It's our nation's greatest shame, is what slavery is. But people have been running with it. Like I said, will.i.am of the Black Eyed Peas said he was heartbroken. Rapper Eve said, quote, "I am done with Kanye," and hip-hop legend Dr. Phil thinks Kanye's words have empowered hate groups. Which, you know what? Well, let's hear what Dr. Phil had to say.
Without spending a lot of time with him and seeing him, so I'm certainly not trying to do that. But what I do see is really, when I say dysregulated thought, he doesn't have a filter here. The things that he's saying are irresponsible and they're ignorant. And, you know, when I say ignorant, I mean that in a descriptive way. If you look that up in the dictionary, it means a lack of information. And, you know, I've seen where he has said on multiple occasions that he doesn't read, that he just thinks. Well, read, Kanye. You need to read, because what you're saying...
It's just such garbage. Like, you would think... First and foremost, Dr. Phil saying that Kanye West could empower hate groups. I think that's true, because Kanye West, one of the people who has one of the biggest platforms and one of the biggest audiences literally on the face of the planet, saying slavery was a choice, allows hate groups to then go, black people chose slavery. Wasn't our fault. Wasn't our problem. We'll just be over here being hideously racist. And it sort of gives people a pass to do that. And in that way, I do think Dr. Phil was right with regard to what Kanye West said, empowering hate groups. But I wish Dr. Phil could have looked into it a little bit deeper and said, what Kanye West was trying to say is that, you know, so much of what he's talking about has to do with the state of our minds. So much of it has to do with the things that can hold us back in life if we let them. When he was saying slavery is a choice, he didn't mean the actual being a slave. He didn't mean being bought and sold. He didn't mean being hideously mistreated in an act that was, like I said, this country's greatest source of shame was a choice. He was talking about the choices that you make afterward, the choices that you make about your life and how you go through it, I think. And that's what I chose to take from it. And I thought it was an important and valuable reminder that if you think you're beaten, you are. If you think you can't, then you cannot. And, well, like I said, it's a tremendous shame that Kanye West's words were twisted in this way after he failed to think them out properly, and the entire world has jumped on him, and the entire world seems only too eager to jump on someone rather than to dig a little deeper and try and understand. Does that make sense, Travis?
It does. And don't get me wrong. I'm the last person who wants to give Kanye West the benefit of the doubt about anything. I mean, truly, I'm not a huge fan of his. But it's just one of those things that, yeah, what he said was terrible, at least in the beginning. But just like you said, I think his message intended to be a message of positivity, saying that from here, you can move on. You can free yourself from it. I think his intent was good. And, did Kanye think about it? No. Do you think he regrets what he said? No. I don't. I don't think he regrets it at all. I think he may feel bad if he hurt somebody's feelings, but I don't think he regrets it. Given the opportunity to go back and say it differently, I don't think he would. I think he would do exactly what because that's what he does. But just like you said, there's a positive message in the message that I don't know why people are not able to denounce what he said in the beginning, but still accept the positive message that he left at the end. I mean, why can they not see that? I don't know. Maybe I'm giving him too much credit.
Yeah, well, I'll be curious to see how this all plays out. And I really do think there is as much of a platform as Kanye West had, as much of a brouhaha as this has created. I think there is a tremendous opportunity for learning and growth for, well, almost the whole world in a situation like this. And I really hope they manage to spin it into something positive. I'll tell you one thing, though. All of a sudden, TMZ used to be like, look who got a boob job. And now it's a really serious place for political and sociological discourse. I don't think they would have seen that one coming. Harvey Levin must be like, what happened? I started this up to have a little fun and talk about, lousy plastic surgery. How have we become the gold standard in responsible broadcasting all of a sudden? This is not what we intended to do.
For more stimulation and less irritation, 9 out of 10 doctors choose KPRC AM 950, Houston's more stimulating talk radio.
Don't get the blues, get all the news. We mean all of you guys out there in Radio Land. All aboard!
He's back. AD on the radio.
Kanye West, when he was at TMZ doing TMZ Live as well, talked about getting liposuction and popping painkillers. Do you see any of this, Travis?
No, the only thing I saw was his controversial statement meltdown. Like, that was the extent of it. I didn't know he went into other stuff.
The whole thing is, well, just listen for a second.
Addicted to opioids. I had plastic surgery because I was trying to look good for y'all. I got liposuction because I didn't want y'all to call me fat like y'all called Rob at the wedding and made him fly home before me and Kim got married. I didn't want y'all to call me fat, so I got liposuction, right? And they gave me opioids, right? And I started taking 2 of them and then driving to work on the opioids, right? Then my boy, and I'd always ask my boy, to hand me if it's, we on tour, give me some weed, blah, blah, blah. So he had to go give me the opioids. And there was talks amongst my camp, like, Ye's popping pills, right? So when he handed this to me, he said, this is used to kill genius, right? So I didn't take it. 2 days later, I'm in the hospital. I was taking 2 pills a day at that time. When I left the hospital, how many pills you think I was given? 7. I went from taking 2 pills to taking 7.
That's actually a completely valid point.
Yeah. Oh,
I mean, poor guy, because I never, no, gosh, I never would. I never thought I'd find myself saying I feel sorry for Kanye West, but like the dude is going through some stuff and disconnected from reality, I think. To me, look, hashtag not a doctor, but there seems to be some genuine confusion and pain there. And it's incredible because I don't know if you're a fan of Kanye West's music, but he is musically and lyrically one of the most articulate communicators you could ever come across. There's a reason he has stacks upon stacks of Grammys. There's a reason his songs reach people and touch people in very sort of deep and significant ways. His words in a song are so unbelievably well put together. And then something like this happens and it's just completely random. And yeah, like I said, TMZ got serious all of a sudden. That whole thing, anyone ever tried to give you painkillers, Travis?
No. I mean, other than like doctors, no. And like I've never even been. Well,
no, that's what I meant. Doctors.
No, I thought you meant like recreationally. But no, either way, I mean, I think I've taken like hydrocodone. Like that's the which is strong enough, but like no, nothing serious.
I'll never forget when my ankle was jacked up. I guess about a year ago now. I went to the doctor. I was like, it really hurts, like really, really hurts, and I wound up having to get all this stuff because they thought it might have been deep vein thrombosis because I'd been on planes for a really long time and had to go through all these different things. But in the meantime, the pain was like crazy. Like I've jacked up my ankle so many times. I'm that stupid Generation XY kid that grew up on skateboards and motorcycles and dirt bikes, and just every part of me is going to need replacing by the time I'm like 45. I'm pretty sure there's lots of aches and pains that I inherited by doing everything dumb, from crashing skateboards, jumping motorcycles over barbed wire fences in my parents' backyard, and hanging upside down from lighting rigs when I was in a band and stage diving and stuff. And I never experienced pain like this. I was like, can you do something? And they're like, well, do you want this? And I think it was Oxycontin. And I was like, the hillbilly heroin stuff? No, thank you. But I'll big passeroo on that. I've read the literature, and what I've read about it is not good. This stuff doesn't seem to be a wise thing for anybody to get to. Thank you, but no. And they're like, oh, do you have a problem with it? Has this been a problem for you in the past? Do you have a problem with opioids? And I was like, no, I've never taken these things, and I don't want to take these things because of what I've heard about them. And they're like, are you sure you don't have a problem with them? And I was like, yeah, I'm positive I don't have a problem with them. I've never used them. And they're like, well, why don't you just take some then? I was like, so you're suspicious that I have an opioid problem, and then you're trying to force them on me, literally trying to force them on me. And Kanye West going from 2 pills to 7 pills, I have no problem understanding exactly how that happened, because like I was saying, no, thank you, I do not want these. And doctors were almost trying to shove them down my throat. It was just like, it is ridiculous. I get that. But yeah, all of a sudden TMZ has gone from being this goofy place to this place for sort of like serious emotional and political discourse. Who would have seen that one coming?
They've got an article about Avicii, the DJ who just passed away.
Yeah.
Analyzing it. Yeah, it's interesting. The article's analyzing whether it was suicide or whether it was, what the cause of death was, and that it's pointing to suicide. But the article goes into like a whole lot of detail about it. And I looked at it as well, and I'm like, really? On TMZ?
So they think it was...
No idea.
The idea I thought was that it was probably suicide. Is this true?
Yeah. Yeah, that's what they're saying. They're saying his family knew that he was having all kinds of problems. Apparently, he had been having health issues. He didn't deal well with the fame of being extremely famous. I guess he had stopped touring because of the health problems and because of the stress.
Hold on a second. He stopped touring?
Yeah. He had stopped touring.
So we've established that it was probably suicide, or do we know for a fact it was suicide?
Yeah. They're saying it was suicide.
And he'd stopped that. I got to tell you, it makes total sense that where was he when he did this?
He was in Oman. He was on, you could say vacation. He was, I guess, just trying to get away from it all. And he was in Oman. And And I guess a family member had talked to him on the phone, and they said that it was a very worrying phone call. One of his family members flew to Oman to try and save him, and it was too late.
I cannot tell you how much sense that makes to me.
Really?
The idea that he was on vacation. Well, okay, so we've talked a little bit on the show in the past about sort of depression, and it's something that I think so many of us go through. Maybe people don't talk about it, but I hate to use the word struggled with depression because it sounds so sort of self-important. I've struggled with depression, but I've had genuine struggles with depression my entire life. And when I was a guy in a band, one of the things that I loved about being in a band was that being on the road, there was always something, you know. You were either sleeping, you were preparing for a show, you were doing press, it was a constant and never-ending machine that you're a part of. And I know that whatever teeny little tiny machine that I was a part of, the one Avicii was in, had to have been so much bigger, like an absolute non-stop merry-go-round of constant work. And when you get off that merry-go-round, all of a sudden you're sort of left alone with your thoughts. And I remember when I was a kid in a band and we would tour, and then we'd have a couple months off, and all the rest of the guys in the band were significantly older than me. So they would go back to England where we were from, and they would hang out with their wives and girlfriends and stuff like that. I would just sort of couch surf and do nothing for, a little bit. I would hang out with friends if I had them in whatever town I was in, and I would just sort of drive around America trying to occupy my mind, and I would do anything to get back out on the road. Like, I didn't want to stay still. I wanted to travel, and to the point where I was just like, I'll go out on the road and sell merch for another band. I'll tour manage another band. I'll do anything to not stay in one place, because the road in that way is a great escape from yourself. Does that make sense? Yeah,
it does. I mean, that's crazy though. I never would have thought about that, but yeah, I mean, you have experienced like a lot of the same stuff that he does. I bet that's wow. It's a very cool insight into it. I mean, it's terrible, and I feel terrible that anybody feels those feelings, but it's wow, that's crazy.
And it's like Chester Bennington of Linkin Park. He was home. He didn't do this on tour. He didn't do it when he had an obligation. He didn't really have anything that he was doing at the time that he decided to take his own life. And if he'd been, performing something that was a responsibility, or if he had a responsibility coming up, if he had something, I really can't effectively understand what was going on in any of their minds, but like, I think you'll find the vast majority of the people that have done something like this have done so when they've had some time off. Avicii was on vacation. Chester Bennington was home alone, not really doing anything with Linkin Park. And I think Chris Cornell, when he committed suicide, I think it was either at the end of a tour or coming up on a few days off. Like, when things are moving, when things are going, when you have to put one foot in front of the other, show up for sound check, show up for interviews, show up for all these things, it sort of quiets your mind. Like I said, it's almost like an escape from yourself. There was a line in The Simpsons, I think it was, and it was so, and it's one of those things that lets you know everybody's going through it in some sort of way. But I think Homer says, like, Marge has to go away on vacation, or there's some sort of situation where Homer had to be alone, and he's like, don't leave me alone with my thoughts. I can't be alone with my thoughts. And I was like, oh my gosh, I completely relate to that. It's when you don't have a million things to do, when you don't have sort of the constant spinning hamster wheel in your mind, that your mind sort of can turn inward a little bit. And so it really... To find out that Avicii passed away while he was on vacation, that he decided to end his... Yeah, I mean, that very sadly makes sense. Gosh, here's the thing. This is a real situation, and so many people don't feel comfortable talking about it, don't feel comfortable acknowledging it, because here's this guy, like Chester Bennington, like Chris Cornell, who has literally everything. He has all the success, all the money, all the adulation, all the creative fulfillment, all the everything that anyone could ever want, more so than anyone else. And people look at a situation like that and go, how could this guy decide to end his own life. And it's just one of those signs that it's not that simple. Like, people want to simplify it. People want to dumb it down and go, he's got everything. Why wouldn't he be happy? And if this proves one thing, it proves that it's not about stuff. It's not about what you have. It's not about the number of people around you telling you that they love you. It's so much, it's so different to that. And I really hope that by talking about these sort of things, which we do when they come up on the show, that anybody who's struggling with anything will find somebody or something that allows them to sort of deal with this. And the best thing, the absolute best thing, is talking to someone. And it's not talking to your friends. It's not talking to your family. I mean, that's important. You need friends. You need family. You need a support system. You need all these things if you're going through depression. But, friends, family, folks like this, they're partial. They want to relate. They want to in some way make it about them. They want to say, well, when I was feeling lousy, all I had to do with this and I felt better. They want to oversimplify things, and they want to get in there and fix you. And I think oftentimes it's so important to be able to talk to someone who is impartial, who doesn't know you, who doesn't have the baggage of having known you for years. And so if you are going through anything, if you're going through depression, if you're going through any kind of situation where you feel as though you might need to talk to someone, please reach out and do so. We've talked about this on the show before, but I knew Chester Bennington. My band had the same manager back in the day. And literally we kind of started our careers at the same point, at the same moment. And obviously his went significantly better than mine did, at least in the musical department, that's for sure. And I'll never forget, I ran into him at one of those Buzz concerts that we put on a little while ago, Travis, the station we both worked for in Houston, the Buzz. He was playing with Stone Temple Pilots, and I was like, hey man, haven't seen you in a long time. How's it going? He was like, I'm literally living the dream. And it wasn't bragging. It wasn't boastful. He was sort of gratefully acknowledging that he had everything that he'd ever set out to get. And it still didn't stop his thoughts from taking him. It doesn't matter how much all your dreams come true. People are still susceptible to this stuff. So I really hope that if you get one thing from this show, it's that if you need to talk to somebody, you should, and there's absolutely no shame in doing it. 800-273-8255. That's 800-273-8255. That's the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline. If you need help, if you need someone to talk to, if you think maybe you need someone to talk to, 800-273-8255, the National Suicide Prevention Lifeline.
Sometimes you just know you're done. You're longing for that shining sun. You walk these streets most every day. You're waiting to get washed away. Radio.
More AD on the radio.
So it's been kind of a heavy show today. Let's change gears, shall we? A little bit, Travis. Did you see how much money those guys who got kicked out of the Starbucks for no reason whatsoever other than that they were black got as part of their settlement?
I did. It's very interesting, isn't it?
It's interesting how it's structured. We'll talk about this a little later on in the show, but right now, with regard to lightening the mood a little bit. You know how Ron Howard, Opie from Happy Days?
Yes.
Directed the new Han Solo Star Wars movie, Solo?
Oh, was he the director of it?
Yeah. He was the director for the new Han Solo movie. Did you see the absolutely brilliant bit of promotion he did?
No, I didn't.
So Ron Howard, besides being a director extraordinaire and besides having been Opie on on the Andy Griffith Show and Richie Cunningham on Happy Days. He was also the narrator of one of your favorite shows, Arrested Development.
Yes. Oh my God, that's such a great show.
So Ron Howard did a great video where he narrated the first Star Wars movie as if it was an episode of Arrested Development, and he tossed in a plug for the new Han Solo movie too, which he directs. Check this out.
Meet Darth Vader. He's upset because his daughter, Princess Leia, stole his secret plans.
I want to know what happened to the plans.
I don't know what you're talking about.
She actually did. Fortunately, Leia's droids landed in the backyard of Luke Skywalker, who found her secret message.
Who is she? She's beautiful.
She's his sister. Curious for answers about the message and the girl, Luke finds Obi-Wan in the desert.
Don't seem to remember ever owning a droid.
From a certain point of view, Obi-Wan was lying.
R2.
Back home, Obi-Wan tells Luke about a religious cult he and Luke's father belonged to.
How did my father die?
Well,
He was a good friend.
Hoping to meet his mystery girl, Luke followed Obi-Wan to find a ride across the galaxy. Not with him, but with this guy.
You've never heard of the Millennium Falcon? It's a ship that made the Kessel Run in less than 12 parsecs.
Hey, that would make an interesting movie. Go see Solo, a Star Wars story, only in theaters May 25th.
So brilliant, right?
Oh,
so brilliant.
My God, that's ingenious.
Yeah, so awesome. Well done, well played. I mean, I was obviously going to go see Solo, but that one, that makes me want to see it even more. So a couple things that I figure we, I talk professionally for a living. Can you tell? That's why the car I drive is not so nice.
Oh my God.
Couple things I would like to talk about later. One being the settlement that the guys who got kicked out of Starbucks for being black got. How much money was it? It's an interesting one, how the whole thing was structured. And I thought we would talk a little bit about Redskins cheerleaders being asked to pose, well, not asked, required to pose topless for a photo shoot. Did you see that?
I saw the headline and I shook my head and I thought to myself, freaking NFL.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll get into all of this later. Right now, though, let's take a look at the events of today. Travis, what is going on in the news?
As we've been discussing, Kanye West says slavery was a choice.
Kim Kardashian must be shaking her head a little bit, wondering how she wound up in a relationship where she was the measured and thought out one. Go on.
True. Justin Timberlake told Ellen he once hooked up with a Spice Girl.
Oh yeah, Ellen got all excited. Ellen really lit up. But then she always does when she thinks about two chicks making out. And there it is. Who was your Spice Girl of choice back in the day?
You know what? I actually found them all very annoying.
Yeah, but if you had to.
The only one that I even remember her name was Sporty Spice. Like, I can't even think of the other spices.
Oh that's...
I know. And I'm in radio. How is this acceptable? It's not.
Yep. I would sacrifice a body part. I haven't decided how vital a body part it would be, but I would sacrifice a body part to be with 1990s Ginger Spice.
Ginger Spice. That's another one.
Yeah,
Good call.
Yeah.
Good call.
Go on.
Gwyneth Paltrow said she went to a dark place due to postpartum depression.
Although it was a very exclusive, must-have, hard-to-get-into dark place that you could only buy at goop.com.
Christina Hendricks turns 43 today.
Does she really?
She does.
Wow. Huh. You know, her face isn't showing any signs of age. I'm just looking at a picture now. That said, I got to be honest with you, this might be the first time I've ever looked at her face. She's awesome. Like, we did this thing on one of my music shows the other day. Say you're with a female and she's putting on a little weight. Do you say anything? Answer is no, because A, you don't want to hurt her feelings. B, she puts up with your stupid, hairy, sweaty, smelly, stinky ass, and for that and that alone, she deserves a Nobel Prize. But what do you do if the female you're with asks you if she's putting on weight? and she is. It's a tough situation, right? Because, well, look, you want to be honest, you want to do the right thing. Honesty is important in a relationship, but you also don't want to hurt her feelings in that way. And I actually sort of got a ton of feedback on the right way to deal with this from females. And one listener said, you don't think about any of this. You just tell her you look beautiful no matter what, or something like that, or something along those lines, you know. And the thing is, I realized that Christina Hendricks is a little, I guess you would call her thick, a little. There's probably going to be people being like, you're body shaming her. I haven't seen her body in a very long time, but I've talked about this a lot on the show. Women are just beautiful. Women look great no matter what. You could be pixie thin. You could be ripped and muscular. You could have a little extra meat on your bones. Ultimately, you're still a woman. You're going to look awesome. Guys don't have the same option. Guys, no one ever looks at us and goes, oh, your movies are so hot. And I just love it when your gut jiggles. Love it, I tell you. Love it. But yeah, Christine Hendricks looking fine as wine at age 43. Good for her.
Leave the stimulation to the professionals.
Everyone is so smart.
KPRC, more stimulating talk radio.
There's something happening here, and you should know what it is. The dumbing up of America. Now, more AD on the radio.
Redskins cheerleaders were required to pose for a topless photo shoot, and the guys who got kicked out of Starbucks settled with the city of Philadelphia. For how much money? We'll get into all this a little later on. Right now, though, before we get into the news, I got to play you this. Did you hear French President Macron was in Australia? Did you hear what he called the Australian Prime Minister's wife?
I did.
Yeah, he learned a tough lesson about doing diplomacy in a foreign language the other day when he thanked the Australian Prime Minister and his... I'll just play it.
I wanted to thank you for your welcome. Thank you and your delicious wife for your warm welcome. It's the perfect organization of this trip. Thanks to you and Lucy. Thank you very much, Mr. Prime Minister.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
He thanked the Australian Prime Minister's, and I quote, delicious wife.
Oh my God.
He meant to say delightful, but the French word he was thinking of sounds a lot like delicious. So that was an international oops.
Oh my God. You know, I'm not going to shame him too much for it because I guarantee you his English is better than my French.
Right. But there's a reason why people that speak the language still use interpreters. Have you ever noticed this with sort of like politicians and even athletes? Like when you're watching the post-game interviews after a baseball game, a lot of the Hispanic players have interpreters. They speak English, but they have interpreters. And it's a weird situation where they have interpreters because they don't want something like that happening. Like their English is good enough to sort of get along. But, you know, when there's a camera on you and it's going to be broadcast all over the world, you want to make sure you get this stuff right. And that's something that President Macron learned the other day when he was trying to flex his linguistic skills. But yeah, you're right. His English way better than our French. So who the hell are we to talk? All right, Travis, let's roll through what remains of the news.
Soft rock legend Christopher Cross turns 67 today.
I love Christopher Cross. I really do.
No.
Do you like his music?
No. Do you really like him?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah. 67. That probably means his prostate size is somewhere between the moon and New York City. How can you not love that song?
I don't think Christopher Cross loves that song. Oh my God. I can't believe you like Christopher Cross.
I'm going to play this to you and explain to you why you're wrong.
you find her. Someone who turns your heart around. Next thing you know, you're cruising down the town.
This is him doing it live, too. What a voice.
Been still with you. Even though you left your way across town. Wondering to yourself, hey, what have I found? Waking up between the moon and New York City.
You don't love this song?
No, I kind of feel like you're helping my argument here. You're providing evidence for my side of the case here. You like this?
So good.
Oh my God.
Such a beautiful song.
Stop.
I gotta tell you, he does look a little bit more like George Costanza than we tend to like our rock stars to look.
He reminds me of George Costanza. Maybe that's why I don't love Christopher Cross.
You don't love sailing? Come on, you're a nautical guy. You spend half your life on the water. The song Sailing doesn't make you want... Oh, man. All right, go on, Philistine, Cad, Bounder.
Here's something I can get behind. A Saved by the Bell themed pop-up restaurant has opened in West Hollywood.
I saw that. So, like... I wonder if they have a band set up so like they play all Zack Attack's greatest hits.
Oh my God, I hope so. That's just Saved by the Bell is the greatest show ever.
Yeah. As a bonus, if you're lucky, your waiter may be the actual guy who played Screech. Actually, I don't think is he still on house arrest? What's his name? Dustin Diamond?
Diamond.
Yeah.
I don't know. I know he had that porn.
Right.
Porno.
Yeah. Oh, gosh. All right. Let's screech right along. What else?
According to AAA, Americans can expect gas prices to rise to $3 a gallon later this month.
Way ahead of you, replied everybody in California. Oh, my gosh. So if you don't know, I work back and forth between sort of mostly Texas and California, like a bunch of different stations all over America. But those are the two places that I tend to call home. And I have a place in both states, and I drove a lot of my stuff there. I drove from Texas to California. You ever made that drive, Travis?
I have made that drive on my way to Seattle, yes.
And there's gas as you're going through the desert. And I remember pulling over and going like, oh man, look at the price of this gas. It must just be so expensive because it's your last chance gas in the desert for a really long time. So they know they gotcha. And I was like, oh no, that's just what it costs in California. It was ridiculous. It was like $4 a gallon back then. It's come down a little bit. I can't remember what the price of gas is in California at the moment, but it's, yeah, the $3 per gallon of gas. That's old news to folks in SoCal. What else?
Budweiser is selling a beer based on a recipe written in a journal by George Washington in 1757.
All right. Well, founding father beers. I believe the experts were able to authenticate the date because the journal also included a message wishing a happy 80th birthday to Larry King.
Oh my God. Oh, that's funny.
All right, a couple more pieces of news, then we should talk about the Washington Redskins.
Yes. President Trump says the Mueller investigation is interfering with his duties as president.
Yeah. So stressed he can barely concentrate on his backswing. That's one thing that President Trump has in common with Obama. A lot of hours logged on the golf course. I never understand how any president can take vacation. This is a bipartisan complaint I have about every president we've had in my adult history. George Bush, always on his ranch in Crawford. How the hell do you have time to go hang out at your ranch? Obama and Trump playing phenomenal amounts of golf. I talk about boobs and make fart jokes on the radio while playing Metallica and Red Hot Chili Peppers records, and I don't have time to do any of these things. I don't have vacation days. I've got so many unused vacation days, and what I do is trivial at best and of no national importance. How is it they're taking all these vacations? I don't understand it, Travis. I do not understand it.
I don't know. We're in the wrong business, obviously,
Yeah.
because I'm also not taking vacations. There you go. A new report claims that Donald Trump lied about his worth in the 1980s to get into Forbes magazine.
Yeah, usually when Trump exaggerates size to get into something, it's Stormy Daniels, but oh well. All right. On that note, shall we talk about the Washington Redskins?
I think we should.
All right, so this is the deal. The NFL has come under increased scrutiny for how it treats cheerleaders, especially in the Me Too era. And now some Washington Redskins cheerleaders say that they were forced to pose topless. This is according to an article in the New York Times. They said it happened during a photo shoot for a calendar in Costa Rica in 2013. So not all that long ago. There's none of that, oh, it was a different time. We weren't as evolved. This is not that long ago. Even though the photos that were used in the actual calendar didn't show any nudity, they were still told that they had to be topless during the actual photos. I wonder if they were sort of like hand bra type things. I don't know. There were also nightclub events where the women were told to interact with the male VIPs. There was no sex involved, but the women still say it felt like the team was, quote, pimping us out. There was also a mandatory boat trip in 2012, which they described as, quote, a wild gathering where men shot liquor into the cheerleaders' mouths with turkey basters. Below the deck, men handed out cash prizes in twerking contests. The Redskins, this is obviously not a good look. And one thing this article does not seem to mention in any way, shape, or form is that the Redskins are no stranger to controversy. Like, when it comes to being politically correct, well, they have the name the Redskins, which they were under tremendous amounts of pressure to change a little while ago. So this is a bit of a double whammy for their public image. The Redskins issued this vague response saying, quote, our cheerleader program is one of the NFL's premier teams in participation, professionalism, and community service. Each Redskin cheerleader is contractually protected to ensure a safe and constructive environment. At no point did it say that thing where VIP dudes shot liquor into the mouths of cheerleaders with turkey basters did not happen. Like, they didn't even bother denying it. They're like, It's basically a statement that says they knew what they were getting into, which is less and less I'm into the idea of the NFL. I mean, I think my big problem with the NFL and all NFL things started when I found out they didn't pay taxes, and it's just been a steady downward spiral of like, oh my gosh, really? Every single time I turn around, there's the NFL effing up again. I guess we have to go straight into this one, right? The guys that got kicked out of Starbucks.
Yeah, this is a really interesting one too.
Yeah. You might not know their names, but Rashawn Nelson and Dante Robinson, they're the two black guys who got kicked out of a Starbucks in Philadelphia last month for being black. They weren't really given a good reason. They were there for a business meeting about real estate, and one guy they were meeting hadn't arrived yet. When they didn't immediately buy coffee, the manager of Starbucks called the cops on them. Anyway, they had a chance to sue the city for a bunch of money, but rather than doing that, they settled for, do you know the amount, Travis?
I do know it.
They settled for $1 each the other day, and instead, they got the city to launch a new $200,000 initiative to help young people start their own businesses. It'll specifically help high school students in the Philadelphia area who are interested in being entrepreneurs. It's really good stuff. Dante says they thought a lot about what to do and felt like this was the best way to make an impact and actually change things for the better. That said, he and Rashawn probably aren't going to walk away completely empty-handed, which I'm glad about, because I was like, no, you take the money. Like, you had something absolutely horrible and humiliating done to you. You teach the city of Philadelphia a lesson by taking as much of their money as possible. Then you go do with it what you want. Then you can donate to something. Then you go, you hold the money up in the air and you say, I'm donating this to something that is going to change things like what happened to us. But you fleece them for all you can get them for. And you say, that'll learn you, in my book anyway. But he and Rashawn probably aren't walking away completely empty-handed. They also settled with Starbucks for an undisclosed sum, and that settlement also includes scholarship funds so they can both finish their undergraduate degrees. So there you go.
Very interesting. I'll tell you what, the $1 a piece really says a lot about what kind of humans they are, because anybody else would have tried to get rich off of it. What great guys.
Yeah, well done. Well played. What an excellent way to set a positive example. Good job, guys. You're doing your thing. We're proud of you.